Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful and, let's be honest, provocative text by Elijah Muhammad. Now, we're not here to endorse these views, but to really understand them. Using slides taken right from his work, we're going to walk through the logic of his claims about history, deception, and ultimately liberation.
Okay, let's just jump right in. This text does not ease you into the subject. It kicks off with this incredibly direct, unambiguous demand. This isn't a request to be included or to be treated better within the system that already exists. No, this is a call for a total and complete break. This one quote really sets the stage for everything else that's about to come.
So a demand that absolute, it makes you ask, where does that come from? Well, to answer that, the text immediately grounds its entire argument in a long history of injustice. It frames the modern struggle as the final chapter of centuries of mistreatment. The entire argument is really built on this specific timeline, kicking off way back in 1555. By laying out this 400-year arc of servitude, the text is making a powerful point, that the problems of today aren't just random incidents. No, they're directly connected to a foundational injustice from centuries ago that, it argues, has just never been resolved.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. Look at the language here. It's so direct, so charged. It's used to draw a straight line from that history right to the present day. It's describing a continuous chain, from the original slave masters to their descendants, basically arguing that the mistreatment never actually stopped. It just changed its clothes.
Okay, so the historical problem is on the table. But the text then asks, why? Why has this injustice been able to last for so long? And to answer that, it introduces this really central concept to explain the mechanics of how that control works.
And that concept is something the text calls tricknology. It's defined as this deliberate strategy of deception. The idea here is that mental chains can be just as strong, if not stronger, than physical ones. The core argument is that people were fed false promises to get them to accept their suffering on Earth instead of fighting back against it.
And this slide just perfectly illustrates the heart of that deception. The text argues that promising a big reward in the afterlife, glory in heaven, was a tool to stop people from demanding justice in the here and now. It created a system where putting up with suffering was painted as some kind of virtue instead of a condition that you should fight against with everything you've got.
So, given this diagnosis, that the whole system is built on a bedrock of historical injustice and kept in place by deception, the text just throws out all the common solutions. Instead, it proposes something way more radical. From this point of view, the mainstream tactics you might think of, like marching or asking for jobs, they're seen as the wrong steps. The text basically argues that doing those things is like begging to be included in the very system that created the whole mess in the first place, instead of just breaking free from it for good. So if integration isn't the goal, then what is? Well, the text lays out three super clear demands. First, full and complete freedom from the system. Second, equal justice but under a new law. And third, and this is the real kicker, a piece of this earth, a physical territory that we can call our own.
So, let's be really clear about this crucial point. The ultimate goal here is not to integrate into American society. It is complete separation. The text argues this is the one and only logical, necessary step to finally escape that 400-year cycle of injustice.
But, a political plan by itself isn't enough. The text argues that to walk this new path, you also need a whole new spiritual foundation.
Islam is presented as the answer here. And what's really highlighted are all these qualities that are meant to directly counteract the effects of tricknology. You see, where the old system taught people to be passive, this path is described as one of fearlessness. Where there was degradation, it emphasizes cleanliness and self-respect. It's really framed as a complete spiritual and psychological reset.
And this spiritual path leads directly to a final, really ambitious vision for the future. It's all about moving from a state of being oppressed to a state of being creators.
This isn't just about some spiritual separation. The end goal is to actually build a physical, self-sufficient nation. The text argues for creating a brand new government, a new civilization, with its own scientists and engineers, the whole thing completely separate from the world of the slave master.
And the scale of this vision, it's just massive. The text is talking about over 20 million people needing their own land. This is not some small-scale community project. This is a call for the creation of a whole new, populous nation. And this is so important. The text completely redefines the whole idea of equality. It's not about social acceptance. It's not about sitting next to someone. From this perspective, true equality is about having the same knowledge, the same power, the same resources, and the same ownership. If you don't have that, the text argues, you are not equal, period.
And that leaves us with a final thought to really chew on. The story we usually hear about the American civil rights movement is one of integration and reform. But this text, it presents a totally different vision, one where complete separation is the only true path to freedom. Thinking about this radical alternative really forces us to ask bigger questions about what liberation truly means.